Avoid making huge financial mistakes by knowing the types of homes to never buy. Are you thinking of purchasing that dream home? In this video, we're going to uncover homes that you should never buy. Remember the movie The Money Pit? I'm going to help you know what to look for and run the other way. If this is your first time to this channel and you want to know everything about living, working, and playing in Indianapolis and the surrounding areas, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications. Hi, my name is Susan Roberts with Homes by Roberts Realty, brokered by eXp. We get calls and emails every day from people just like you that are looking for help on making a move, and we absolutely love it. Whether you are moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. All the information you need is in the description below so that we can help you make a smooth move and love your new home. Buying a house is a significant lifetime investment that requires careful consideration. Whether you are a first-time home buyer or a seasoned home buying veteran, there are properties you should stay away from and properties you should totally avoid. But you ask, Susan, you're in the business of selling homes. Why on earth would you tell me not to buy a home? My answer? I have a fiduciary obligation to you as my client, and my job is to help you find a home that fits your needs. And I take that very seriously. But there are a handful of properties that I personally believe that you should stay away from. In this video, I want to spend some time with you and take you through these properties so that ultimately you're not a home buyer who regrets their purchase. After all, a home is most likely the largest purchase you'll ever make. And you don't get a return within 30 days if you don't like it policy. The last thing you want to have happen is to buy a property and then have to throw all of your good money after a bad problem. Something that you didn't know was going to be a problem, and in some cases, something that you couldn't change even if you wanted to. This video could ultimately save you some headache and heartache by completely avoiding certain types of properties. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to ask you to do me a favor. If you find any value in my videos, hit the subscribe button that's down below and help support me and the time I spend bringing these videos to you. Thanks in advance, or TIA for those of you who understand text speak. The very first type of property I want to talk about are properties that have been flipped. These are those properties that were distressed, needed cosmetic work, or even a total rehab. They were purchased by someone with the idea of fixing them up and turning around and selling them again at a higher price so they could turn a profit on them. Well, here's the biggest problem with flips. Many of these flips are very poorly done. Not all are like you see on HGTV. One of the reasons is that a lot of these investors just got into the game because they think that there's big money to be made, and they have absolutely no business fixing and flipping properties. Another reason is that in many cases, these aren't business people, nor are they contractors. They are just a Joe down the street who thinks they can make a huge profit on a property. But what I often see is that these investors overpay for properties, which causes them to do the fix-up on the cheap to save money so that they can still make a larger profit on the resale. One thing I like to point out to clients, when we're going through flip properties, if you can notice with the naked eye problems in the home, then there is a pretty good chance there are other problems that you can't see. Some examples would be, say, if you're in the kitchen and you notice that they stopped the counter short, or there's gaps between the counter and the backsplash and the wall, or the cabinets don't fit correctly, or are crooked, or maybe baseboards show that the flooring is not level, or the closet doors don't open or close easily. Whatever it is, if you can notice it with the naked eye, there are probably shortcuts and issues that you can't see. Remember, many of these flippers aren't using licensed contractors to do the work in the property, and they are sometimes even doing the work themselves to save even more money. In fact, oftentimes they haven't even pulled permits, which means you don't even have anyone checking the work to make sure that it was done correctly. When you're changing things like electrical or plumbing, or even high-ticket items like foundations or other structural repairs, you need somebody following up to make sure that the work was done correctly. The last thing you want as a home buyer is to have to do major repairs on a property that you thought was nicely upgraded because the seller that you bought it from didn't do the work like they were supposed to do. I will say that not all flip properties are created equal. There are flippers and investors out there that do really, really good work on their properties. But at the same time, there are also a lot of flippers out there that don't do really good quality work. So, if you're considering buying a property that has been flipped, just make sure to do some extra due diligence and make sure you've checked out everything. And for certain sure, have an inspection. You can also check or ask your real estate agent to check to see if permits were pulled. Plus, check to see if the investor flipper will provide the names of the contractors that they used, and or actually will provide receipts for work that was done. If they do provide names, and those people are licensed, then you're probably in good shape. But on the other hand, if none of the work was done by licensed contractors and no permits have been pulled for the work or the rehab, and especially if you can see shoddy workmanship, I would think more than twice, maybe 3 or 4 times about purchasing the home. On to the second type of property that I would probably stay away from. Houses that are located near major streets, a freeway, or are close to a working railroad track. If you're in mountainous areas, there are all kinds of structural issues to consider and investigate if the home is on a hillside. But not much, if any, problem here in the flat central Indiana. Why is all this important? Well, you can't just pick up a property and move it, except in monopoly. It's the old adage, location is everything. Location, location, location when it comes to real estate. Even though these properties may be less expensive than homes with comparable features, and even if you plan on staying there forever, the home will at some point need to be sold. It will still be less expensive than comparable homes. Plus, it will take much longer to sell because of the freeway, busy street, or nearby railway. Plus, the pool of potential buyers diminishes considerably. When there's noise involved, you're going to lose a large majority of qualified buyers just because they don't want to deal with the noise, and who wants to sit and spend time on your back patio and listen to cars or trains go by. The third type of property I want to talk about is one of the most important issues with a home, and those are structural issues. This could be a crack in the foundation, rotted sill plate, cracks in walls, the ceilings are straight, the cracks aren't straight. The reason I say they're not straight lines is because oftentimes you'll see a hairline crack in a wall or a ceiling, and it's just a crack where the drywall sheets meet and the tape has become dried out and pulled away. That is really not a huge issue because it normally happens when the home settles. Same goes with nail pops you may see in the ceiling. I'm not a home inspector, and if you see one of those cracks, you should contact an inspector or somebody in the know to actually take a look at the problem. But from experience, I would say those straight line cracks typically aren't issues. If, however, you have cracks that go in all different directions, these could definitely indicate that there are a foundation issues. I would never personally buy a home that has structural issues just because these homes can be very, very difficult and quite costly to remediate and fix the problem. Besides those issues, if you notice sagging ceilings, or in some cases, maybe you're thinking about buying a home where a load-bearing wall was removed to create that much wanted open concept, and now the ceiling is starting to sag a little bit, be cautious. In my opinion, this also falls under structural issues and homes that you should probably avoid. These issues are outside of a home inspector's expertise. You go to a person in these instances who would be a structural engineer. For clarification, earlier in the video, I mentioned about checking to see if permits have been pulled on properties that had been flipped. Well, it also makes sense to see if permits have been pulled on properties that have been extensively remodeled or renovated. Personally, I don't worry about the permits if it's mostly cosmetic work that's been done, but if it would make you sleep better at night, go ahead and check permits and make sure that everything was done properly and within code. The one non-negotiable walk away for me is those properties that have had structural work done, like posts have been removed, walls have been removed, and no permits have been pulled. The potential for a big issue is there. I've walked into properties before where I could tell the ceiling had the lines of where there had been a wall, or I'd been in that particular floor plan before and knew that there should have been a wall there. If the home has a second level, there is an even greater chance of ongoing problems if a wall or post has been removed. Bottom line, if you're looking at properties that have had extensive work done, please take the extra time to do your due diligence and don't skip a home inspection. It's okay to waive contingencies on some things, but don't waive all your contingencies. Don't put yourself in a corner where your back is against the wall and you've got to move forward with the purchase even when there's known issues with a property. I realize inventory is low and buyer demand and competition is still high. And you want to win properties, but don't do it at the sake of buying something that needs a lot of work just to move into a home. There will be others for you to choose from. I know that's hard to believe sometimes, but there will be. A few other things to consider avoiding when buying a home is homes that have old galvanized plumbing. Oftentimes, these pipes can lead to rust in the water, and you're going to have to replace them over time. And chances are it's going to be sooner rather than later. Many of the galvanized pipes have been replaced with PVC pipes, but be aware that PVC should not be connected to a hot water heater. This is also something that a home inspector will be able to determine. Yay for home inspectors! Additionally, homes that have electrical old knob and tube wiring are not up to the current code, and the wiring will need to be replaced with aluminum wiring. If you or any of your inspector hears any buzzing in the electrical panel, it's often an issue with knob and tube wiring. Have an electrician remove the electrical panel cover to check. Make sure to read over the seller's disclosure, as this is an item that must be disclosed in Indiana. Another item to have thoroughly checked is the HVAC system. If the furnace or the AC condensing unit needs replaced, that's a major expense. You want to make sure it's in good working order. Homes that need roofs replaced due to damage or where the roof is near the end of its useful life, which honestly always makes me smile because I wonder if that could be said about me, a gray hair thing. Anyway, I digress. Replacing a roof is also a major expense. Depending on the square footage of the home, and the cost can range anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000, upwards of $50,000, depending on the type of roof. I feel like a real naysayer here, but yet another issue to take seriously is mold and or water damage, as the water damage of today may create mold problems tomorrow. I'm not talking about a leak under the sink or in a bathroom, but say a leak in a pipe in the crawl space that the seller didn't even know about and that you couldn't see. Mold can be remediated, but it is difficult and oftentimes costly. Again, your inspector will uncover either of these problems. If the home is on a well and septic, I would highly recommend paying the extra and getting them inspected as well. It's this is no pun intended, it is well worth it, as new wells or septic systems are expensive. I've honestly had more than one home need a new septic system that the seller had to replace, and they had no idea that it was going bad. The last deal breaker issue is bugs, not spiders or ants, rather termites. These wee insects can do major damage to a home, sometimes to the point of being unrepairable. Termite damage sometimes appears similar to water damage. Outward signs of termite damage include buckling wood, swollen floors and ceilings, areas that appear to be suffering from slight water damage, and visible mazes within walls or furniture. Termite infestations also can exude a scent that is similar to mildew or mold. Extensive and unresolved structural damage to a home can be caused by termites. The most common type of termite in Indiana is the eastern subterranean termite. As the colony matures, they can do significant damage, destroying a home structure, get this, in 5 to 6 years. Yikes! And here comes the repeating record. Get a home inspection and include a termite inspection. All homes purchased with FHA loans require a termite inspection, and as you can see, for good reason. This is not meant to say that you should never, ever, never purchase a home with one or more of these issues. It's more meant to let you know what might be a deal breaker and what might not, but also what to make sure you understand that there could be significant out-of-pocket expenses. If you still want the home, as with all of these issues, make sure the price reflects the cost of all the needed repairs, or ask the seller to repair or replace them in an inspection response. Again, it all depends on your financial position and whether or not you want to take on major repairs. If you're a first-time home buyer, walking away is probably the road to take. If you're a contractor, maybe you'd like the challenge to get the repairs done right and willing to put in some sweat equity. But if you're like most of us, major repairs are just not an option on top of the financial commitment of buying, and you just can't afford the out-of-pocket expense for major repairs. Note that buying still is a much better financial choice than renting. But I digress yet again. I'm sure I could come up with some other types of properties that you should stay away from and avoid, but I'd like to ask you, what types of issues have you had after purchasing that you wished you'd walked away from? So, do me a favor and let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully, I haven't scared you away and made you think that home buying always has these pitfalls. Rather, I'd like for you to be aware of some of the issues that could come up. By having a knowledgeable real estate agent that has experience and is willing to help you make the best decisions possible and guide you through the entire home buying process, you can avoid these pitfalls. Happy home buying! Oh, and sellers, if you want to avoid an unknown hit to your bottom line, get a pre-inspection prior to listing. That way, you know where you stand and can either price your home accordingly or do the repairs. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe and help my channel grow. Happy home buying! Signing off, it's Susan Roberts with Homes by Roberts Realty, brokered by eXp.